Good afternoon. Welcome to Florida. I was able to drive over here today, which is such a nice feeling instead of having to fly around the country. I was able to just got this morning to be able to be with you. So I'm excited for our hour together. We're going to be exploring some different practices and technologies. I know you all are eating, but a little bit later, you're going to need a piece of paper and maybe your mobile device. So if you have those handy and something to write with, that would be great. But until then, please enjoy your lunch. And I'm going to be sharing some different experiences I've had in my profession in terms of distance learning and using ed tech for social good. So I run a nonprofit organization. We are learning a lot because the work we're doing is on a mission of climate education for all. So we're actually part of the work that's finding out how this is going to look in the world of education. So we didn't really have a guidebook. We've been working with experts in the field, and everything we do is online. So we're working with schools and organizations from over 150 countries. So distance learning and being able to have access to learning opportunities using technology is at the core of everything we do. For me, in all of the different areas of my professional life, building community and instructional design is my passion. So before I start, I wanted to share with you some of the foundational research that really continues to guide my work and that will guide a lot of what I'm sharing today. This is a UNESCO paper that came out in 2021. I do a lot of work with UNESCO. I look to them as a thought leader in the work I do with global education. But this paper that came out, and it's kind of a funky title page, but their cover says, Reimagining Our Futures Together. So it's broken into these sections. We're going to go into one of them today. You can see at the top, and I know it's very tiny, so I'll tell you what it says. The first one is on pedagogy. So they're starting with pedagogical practices, strong instructional design. Next, they move into curricula, so the content. Then talking about professional development, which I'm so happy that they prioritize teacher PD, educator PD. Schools should, then it starts to talk about like social spaces and your actual physical structures of schools are online spaces in our situation. And then talking about connections within the community. So I'd love to be able to go into all of these because this really, they fit together like a puzzle. We need every one of these when we talk about this idea of education with a social contract. But I'm going to focus in on the first one today, instructional practices in terms of pedagogy. So this is the only slide I'm going to read, but I do want to read this because there's a few sentences in here that I continue to go back to. And since it's tiny, I'll read it for you word for word. So it says, pedagogy should be organized around the principles of cooperation, collaboration, and solidarity. It should foster the intellectual, social, and moral capacities of students to work together and transform the world with empathy and compassion. So it continues on, and this sentence for me is kind of everything. There is unlearning to be done too. Of the bias, prejudice, and divisiveness. There is unlearning to be done too. I know a lot of the times in education we're talking about the learning, but what if we pause and we think about the unlearning? And then finally, let's focus on assessment. Assessment should reflect these pedagogical goals in ways that promote meaningful growth and learning for all students. So that hooks me. So that tiny little paragraph, you can find pages and pages that can support you, the language that you may need as you're going out and fighting for some of these practices and programs that you care about. So let's jump in. Now that we've kind of framed our talk and the work to be done. Ready for change, that's the title of my talk for today. And my work started off in the classroom. And I was in K-12 for 20 years. I started on the science side of education as a speech-language pathologist. And so I was working with very small groups of students in a therapy-style room. But I saw this photo, and when I saw it for the first time, I remember feeling this emotion of sadness. Because what I saw in this photo was everything without. So a classroom without walls, without ceilings, without desks, students, some without clothes, many without shoes. If you look at this photo, something essential, I think, for a classroom that's missing is a teacher. And so I was like, where's the teacher? And she said, well, this is in the Kakuma refugee camp. And for a teacher to be trained in the Kakuma refugee camp, you need 2 weeks of training. That's teacher training there. And so sometimes teachers wouldn't be there. And in those moments, after these students have walked many, many miles in long distances to come, if they didn't have a teacher sitting in their chair, then one of those older mentor students would jump up and they would teach. So I was wondering, well, why did they come? So I kept going on this journey with her. And what I found was they were coming for food because this was their only meal for the day. And school for them equaled access. School, it equaled hope, opportunity. That could be a way for them to get out. Distance learning is an invitation. So this one has really helped guide everything I do in terms of instructional design. You are invited as compared to you are required. It moves us away from compliance. And when we're talking about changing the world, we have to do that. So those associations, those connections, to build trust, you have to start with trust. If they don't trust you, they're not going to show up. They're not going to come like Loise's students running to come to that classroom, which is just a chalkboard up against a crooked tree. They have trust. There's going to be food. There's going to be someone there. They feel empowered, and then they can create history together. Our sphere of influence is huge, and the words we say and the decisions we make, they matter for not just the people in the room that we're working with. So, of course, since you're in Florida, I love to bring in some beautiful images of our state, but I love this quote. The horizon means forward, offering you space to place new steps of change. So I look forward to continuing the conversation with each of you. I have gratitude that you spent your lunch with me and listening. I know you could be doing a lot of other things. Of course, I thank Pat and Valerie. I see Valerie and Pat and the team for inviting me just to share some of the stories about things I care about in terms of education. And please continue to use the Padlet if you have questions. I will go back and I will respond to them, and I will make sure that I see them if you have them, even if it's in a week. I go back to my Padlets all the time. But thank you for having me, and I hope you have a good rest of your conference.